Again, we're going to ask the guys to go first, asking you to give a 1-minute testimony. Now, we did this last week because young people made decisions at the youth conference, and then right at youth conference was over, they took off to camp, and they went to camp. And so just tell about maybe something God spoke to your heart about in your brief testimony, and then, of course, we'll have the girls to come. We'll have you both line up at the same time over here. I'll have Brother Jonathan work the mic to hand that to you. And Brother Jonathan, you come and tell a little bit about camp and about what took place, and then our young people would come line up for the testimonies.
I want to say thank you to the parents. I know it's not always easy sending your kids away for a week, and some of you parents, but I heard, now some of you parents, you have no problem sending your kids away for a week. It's like, God bless you. Do you have a 2-week camp lined up next year? Okay. But I got a lot of feedback from parents when we did the Facebook Live and videos like that, and y'all really enjoyed that. And I'm glad. I'm thankful for technology for that reason. And it was amazing. I shared PhotoStream and things like that, and I was getting texts from parents, hey, tell my kid not to do that, or something like that. I got a text from one parent said, because we posted pictures, and got a text from one parent, please tell my son to get his shoes off my comforter. And so, it's like, that's not why I shared the pictures, but amen. So it was a lot of fun at camp. I mean, a lot of fun at camp. Your kids made a lot of decisions. As a matter of fact, 12, am I saying it right? 12? Do we have 12 or 13? 15. 13. We had 13 saved? Well, we had a lot get saved at camp, okay? And most of them, with the exclusion of maybe a bus kid, most of them will be getting baptized tonight. And so we're really excited about that as well. Lots of decisions made. I encourage you parents to help your child keep their decision. I asked your teenagers while we were there, I said, how many of you, and I didn't do this, bow your head and close your eyes and then raise your hand to save from embarrassment. I didn't do any of that. I said, how many of you, honestly, you've been more spiritual this week than you have in the past year? Every hand went up. And I said, how many of you attribute that because you don't have a cell phone or an iPad or TV or anything to distract you? And they raised their hand again. I encourage you parents to get spiritual teenagers. Help them keep their decisions. Help them keep their decisions. Ask them, what is a decision you made at camp? And motivate them to keep that decision. Every morning when we would wake up, I would go to the guys and I would say, hey, you come to me, tell me what you got out of your Bible reading. And the guys would line up and they would come tell me what they got out of their Bible reading. We'd go to the breakfast time and I would ask the girls, hey, what'd you get out of your Bible reading? And it's amazing how when I put them under that kind of pressure, they read their Bible until they got something out of it. It was amazing. But what's really neat is over the past 2 days, I've had 7 different teenagers text me and just tell me what they got out of their Bible reading. So I even challenged tonight in Young Fundamentalists, I challenged your teenagers sometime in the next week, not every day, just sometime in the next week for them to text me one time just as something that they got out of their Bible reading. Now, if you could help me, parents, encourage your teenagers to do that. Encourage them to do that. Here's what they agreed with, too. If I did not put them under that kind of pressure, they would just blindly read their Bible and not get anything out of it this next week. So we need to encourage accountability with your teenagers and encourage them to read their Bible and get something out of it. So I want to thank everybody for coming. Lots of decisions made. And in just a little while, we'll also have the video. Now, I threw all the pictures in there and the videos in there. And so literally every picture is like a second and a half. I mean, it's up there, it's up there, it's up there. So you're going to have to be watching like that. I didn't realize it until after I had exported the video and realized how fast it was. So you'll have to pardon me for that, but you'll still get to see the pictures. One of the guys in particular, Eric, he asked me, he said, Brother Jonathan, do we have a time limit? And I said, yes, we have a time limit. He said, oh, okay, because I could talk for 20 minutes about how good God has been the week of camp. And one of the other guys came to me, Nathan Hooker, he came to me and said, Brother Jonathan, thank you for making me sit on the front row at camp. He said, I got more out of that message than any other message. because I sat on the front row. I didn't get distracted at all. And that's why we encourage your kids and teenagers not to sit in the balcony, not to sit under the balcony, but push them to get up forward so that they pay attention, Now, I understand every once in a while they have to do that, but every once in a while, put them on the front row. Put them on the second row. That way they can pay attention and listen and get something out of it. So I'm glad to see these guys on the front row. It's amazing. Hopefully you amen really loud so we can get out of here. Hopefully you amen really loud. That way preacher knows that he is supported, okay? All right, guys, go line up. We'll get you started, youngest to oldest, like we did at youth conference. If you came to camp, go line up. You girls get behind them. We do youngest to oldest, and you only have 1 minute. You only have 1 minute. Brother Mason? All right, you only have 1 minute. Remember, this is a testimony time, so not necessarily my favorite food was the sloppy joes. So remember to keep that in mind. I didn't have time to go over that in the youth center. All right, come on up, Andy. Tell what happened in your life.
All right. First, I would like to thank my parents for paying my way to camp, and preacher for letting us go to camp, and Brother Jonathan for wanting us to go and taking us. And I would like to thank the person that rented the bus for us. Yes. And first of all, I got saved, and then
Say it again. They didn't hear you.
I got saved, and
Say it again. They didn't hear you.
I got saved. And one of my decisions was to not have tears in my life and to make the tears wheat in my life.
Super.
Well, I'd like to thank Preacher for letting us go to camp, and Brother Jonathan for making us go, and my parents for paying my way. And I don't know who rented the coach bus for us, but it was really nice. It had AC and everything in it, but thank you, whoever did that. I don't know who you are, but one of my decisions was to be a better soul winner.
Amen.
Well, I'd like to thank my parents for paying my way, and the person who rented the bus. That way we didn't have to have the windows down on one of ours in the 100-degree temperatures for 3.5, 4 hours. And I made several decisions, but the most important one to me is to increase my prayer life.
Amen. Super.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Brother Jonathan for letting us go, and Preacher, and my parents for paying my way, and whoever it was who got the bus. That was a really big blessing. The food was great, the preaching was great, and I made a lot of good decisions, but the main one was to get rid of the tears in my life.
I want to say thank you to Brother Jonathan, Preacher, and my parents for all allowing me to go this year. And I want to say thank you for the person who paid for the bus. I decided this year that I don't want to be a tear in the youth department at all. I just want to, be a weed in the youth department. And also I got saved. And I got saved.
I just want to thank Brother Jonathan and Preacher for letting us go to camp. It was a great week. We learned a lot. A lot of people got saved, a lot of my friends, and we learned a lot, and I personally decided to get baptized. So.
Amen. Super.
I want to thank my parents for paying half my way to go, and I want to thank Pastoral for letting us go, and I want to thank Brother Jonathan for coming with us. I made the decision to read my Bible more and not let anything get in the way.
I'd like to thank the people who helped pay for me to go to camp. I'd like to thank Preacher and Brother Jonathan for letting us go. And good thing we had the bus with the bathroom on it. There was great preaching and great food there, and my decision was to read my Bible more.
First off, I'd like to thank my parents, Brother Jonathan and Preacher, for allowing me to go to camp this year. It was a lot of fun, and thank you all to all the youth workers that went, and for all the fun we had in the dorms. All the preaching was great, and like Brother Jonathan said, I went up to him because he made all the 11th to 12th grade guys sit on the front row, And I got more out of that message than any other message because there was no distractions. You're right there in the front, and he's spitting in your face. So you better not fall asleep, and you can't really daydream. So, yeah. But I made a decision not to be a tear in the youth department and to become a wheat.
I just want to thank Preacher for allowing us to go to camp this year, and Brother Jonathan and Miss Heather and all the counselors for taking us. My parents for encouraging me to go, and both the preachers were very spitball, fireballs this year and everything. I haven't heard either of them, but they were real well, and Wes Stewart had some amazing sermons, and one of the sermons on Wednesday night was about separating the wheat from the tares, and I just decided to help separate the wheat from the tares, and help lead more souls to Christ. And I encourage you, if you haven't gone to camp before, to go. It'll change your life. It changed my life, and I know that it will change others.
Amen. Well, thank you to everybody who came and helped, all the counselors, Brother Jonathan, Miss Heather, whoever paid for the bus. That was very nice. Camp was a lot of fun. There's a lot of funny memories and stuff like that. The bunkhouse was a lot of fun, and you get to know people better, and just see what they're really like. But then it's also neat. We have devotions at night and stuff like that, and it really brings you closer together with the youth group. I made a lot of decisions, but I think the main one, they were talking a lot about planning and a lot about trees. One of the preachers, all the sermons were about trees and like reap what you sow and things like that. And it kind of brought back to my memory my calling of being a youth pastor a long time ago, and I decided to start planning more on that and building the roots in my calling more now, so I'll be ready in the future.
First of all, I would like to thank my family for letting me go. But I would also like to thank Preacher and Brother Jonathan for making the decision for letting us go to camp. And a lot of sermons spoke to me, but one of them was how not to doubt God and how to stop that. And I made a decision to not doubt God anymore.
I want to thank Brother Jonathan and Preacher and Brother Jonathan for allowing us to go to camp. I want to thank my aunt and uncle for paying my way there. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have got saved at camp. So I'm thankful for I got saved. Thankful for Brother Daniel for talking to me about my salvation. And I'm glad I got it settled. And I've made a decision to start reading my Bible every morning. So, yeah.
I want to thank Preacher and Brother Jonathan for letting us go, taking us as well. Thank you for the bus, whoever paid for it. Also, the messages were amazing. The singing was amazing. But mainly all the messages pulled together. And my decision overall was just to be a better encouragement and a better example for the teenagers.
I'd like to thank Preacher and Brother Jonathan for allowing us to go to camp. They just started it last year, and we got to go last year and this year, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for my parents for paying my way, and I got to see my little brother get saved. That was pretty awesome, and it was funny because when Alex got saved, they announced it like later that night, and all the guys went, and he was laying on his bed, and all the guys went and jumped on him at the same time. So it was really funny. And then the sermon that I liked the most was one of the preachers in the morning. He preached on having a good root system, and that's what I want to work on.
Yeah, it was funny. It was funny because here it was, Brother E, what was it, 11:30? 11:45? You know how it is. You're trying to get guys to go to sleep. They're all rowdy. And I said, all right, guys, go to sleep. Go to sleep. And I walk around with my flashlight shining it on the ceiling. I go, oh, by the way, Alex got saved. They jump. All these guys, they're supposed to be asleep 5 minutes, 10 minutes ago. They jump out of their beds and dogpile Alex on his bed. It was funny. It was really funny.
First off, I'd like to thank Preacher for letting us go. I'd like to thank Brother Jonathan for making it possible. I'd also like to thank my parents for paying part of my way. It was a lot of fun. We did have some great times in the bunkhouses, and the preaching was very good. And I made a decision to get the tares out of my life and turn them into wheat. And also, whenever I take something bad out of my life, to fill it with something good. Otherwise, sometimes you go back to the bad, even worse. So.
I like to thank everyone that came to camp and watched us, Brother Jonathan for taking us, and all the adults. And I'd like to give a personal thank you to Brother Daniel and Ephraim for standing up when they got saved, because without them standing up, I wouldn't have grown the courage to get saved. And that was a real blessing for them, and it encouraged me a lot to get saved that night. But I'd like to thank my mom for helping me pay. I love you, Mom. She got upset because I didn't say I love you last week, so. I love you, Mom. Yeah, it was a great blessing. The message that spoke to me the most was actually the last one. Brother Tenney said something like, it doesn't matter where you come from, but it matters who you let in on your life. And that actually spoke to me because I came from a horrible background, the hood, and all that kind of stuff. And look at me now, I'm bus route, working and stuff like that, showing people the Lord. But yeah, that spoke to me. And without letting this church in my life, I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing now. And I'd like to thank all of you guys for being an amazing church and coming into my life. And I wouldn't have got saved. Thank you.
And I don't know if y'all caught it because he was talking so fast because he was trying to cram 20 minutes into 1 minute, but Eric got saved as well at camp this past week. And Brother Daniel, stand up, he got saved. Brother Ephraim got saved. Some of our adult workers, Brother Brandon Wilson, he got saved at camp. So those are 3 of our adults, they got saved as well at camp.
Okay, I'd like to thank my parents for allowing me to go to camp, and Brother Jonathan and Preacher and everybody. Thank you for allowing us to go. And the preaching was good, the singing was good, great, and enjoyed the Preacher boys and everybody that participated. And God spoke to me a lot, especially in one sermon about the devils, how the person was possessed with the devil. He was cleansed, and then he had nothing in his life, so 7 more devils came into him, and he was worse than before. And that convicted me because I want to take out the bad things out of my life, but put good things, not just leave it open for the devil to come back in and make me worse. And I don't want to be worse than I was. And yes.
That's the disadvantage you parents have is you don't get to hear them like the sermons online and stuff. But one of the sermons the preacher preached on was how the man was possessed with a devil, and he had swept and garnished his house. So the devil came back. The Bible's talking about the devil. That devil came back home to where he used to live, which was inside that person, and found it swept and garnished. So he went and grabbed his buddies, 7 others, and came back, and now the guy was possessed 8 times over. And the whole reason was because, yes, he cleaned up his life, but he left it empty instead of replacing it with good. And you can't be overcome with evil without replacing it with good. Be not overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. And so it was an amazing sermon. Yes, your teenagers, if they do wrong and they clean it up, they've got to replace it with good, or else they're going to go back and refill it all over again with that because they're void. So it was a super, super sermon. And by the way, parents, thank you for letting me stretch your kids. I stretched them on instruments. I stretched them on preaching. Markel came to me and said, I want to sing a solo. And I started playing the piano for him. I said, you know what? Why don't you preach? Why don't you preach? He did not want to preach. As a matter of fact, you could see it all over his face. But he ended up preaching instead, and he did a fantastic job. Your teenagers did a great job. Lydia, I went to her and said, hey, I want you to play the violin. She did not want to play the violin. But she did a great job. She won first place, too, by the way. And so she did a great job, too.
First of all, I'd like to thank Pastor and Brother Jonathan for letting us go to camp, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have gotten saved. And I got saved. And I'd like to thank Miss Penny for leading me to the Lord. And there was tons of other decisions I made, but one of them was to not look like a tear and to look more like a wheat.
Amen.
I want to thank Preacher for letting us go to camp, and Brother Jonathan, and all the youth counselors for putting up with all of us crazy people. And I want to thank my awesome brother for paying my way to camp and conference. And I liked like all the sermons, but the one that really spoke to me the most was probably Brother Tenney's on the tree, and how, you know, people always look good on the outside, but, you know, when you chop down the tree, what's on the inside a lot of times is a dead heart. And that really spoke to me, and I just want to have a good heart.
Amen. Super. You should say it loud.
I'd like to thank my grandparents for paying my way to camp, and Brother Jonathan and Preacher for having camp, and I got saved.
Amen.
And I decided to not be a terror towards my authorities.
Good job.
I'd like to thank Preacher and Brother Jonathan and Miss Heather for allowing us to go to camp, and all the people who took off work to come be counselors. And I really enjoyed camp. It was a lot of fun. All the preaching was great, and I got to hear 2 new preachers that I've never heard before. And my brother and my dad got saved, so that was an extra blessing.
Amen. Super. All right, be loud.
Well, I enjoyed camp and all, but the message that spoke to my heart the most was, are you a wheat or a tare? And I had been doubting my salvation for some time, and I want to thank Miss Heather for leading me to the Lord, and I got saved. I got saved.
I really enjoyed camp, and I would like to thank my mom for paying my way through, and Brother Jonathan and Preacher for letting us go to camp. And I got saved. And my favorite message was the one about the wheat and the tare, and I decided I wasn't going to be a tare against my authorities.
Super.
I want to give thanks to my parents for paying my way to camp, and Preacher and Brother Jonathan for allowing us to go. There's a lot of great messages. My favorite was, I think, Brother West. Is that his name? Okay. Oh, yeah. And it was about the tares and weeds, and that really spoke to me, and I made a decision not to have a tare towards my authority. And I caught a chicken. That was pretty cool. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you'll see the little adventure tonight of how it took her to catch that chicken.
Well, I had a lot of fun this week. I embarrassed myself a lot. Like, a lot. I made a lot of memories. Yes, all the time. And anyway, I had a lot of fun. And of course, the Lord spoke to me a lot in all of the messages. But one of my decisions is to read my Bible through.
Amen. Super. Speak up.
First, I want to thank Brother Jonathan and Preacher for allowing us to go to camp. And I had a really, really fun time, especially in the dorms, just getting to know everyone better, and also just being crazy. But some decisions that I made was to pray, have a better prayer life, and also to get more out of my Bible, not just reading it.
I'd like to thank Preacher and Brother Jonathan for allowing us to go to camp, and for those who paid my way. And the messages, they all spoke to me in a different area, and my decision was not to be a tare.
First off, I want to thank my parents and Preacher and Brother Jonathan, and the message that spoke to me was the wheat and the tare, not to be a tare.
Amen. Super. All right, be loud, Jeff.
I'd like to thank my parents for paying my way, and Preacher and all the youth workers that helped out. One of the decisions that I made was to fill my life with good things for God, so the devil can't influence me.
Amen. Super.
I'd like to thank Preacher and Brother Jonathan and the workers who came with us, who had to put up with us teenagers. But I thank all of them. I didn't have a favorite sermon, but they all was great. They all talked to me. The conference was great, and the camp. I'd like to thank Brother Jonathan for paying my way and helping me. Without him and his wife, it would be horrible, whatever. But I thank all the workers and stuff, and the food was great, and I caught a chicken and a goat.
First off, I'd like to thank Brother Jonathan and Preacher for letting us go to camp, and all the youth workers who took off work so that we could go. They weren't getting paid to go, obviously, and so thank you for that. That was a pretty big sacrifice. I got to see my little sister get saved, which is something I've been praying for a while now, and by a while I mean 4 months, but I'm a teenager, that's a while for me. And so that was really cool, and my decision was not to be a castaway.
I'd like to thank my mom for paying for camp, and Brother Jonathan and Preacher for letting us go to camp. My favorite sermon was one of the Preacher boys, Elijah Bird. He preached on separation, but I made the decision to be a better Christian.
This was probably one of the best. I've only gone to camp twice, but this was probably my favorite. It went by really slow compared to youth conference, but it was really neat. One of the preachers, the one that preached at night for the West, he was actually born really close to where I was, so it was really neat to have somebody like that. And I made a decision to never doubt God.
Come here, girls. Maria, Linda, Sarah, get up here. Where's Adeswa? Is Adeswa here? Yeah, where's Brandon Hooker? Come on up here, Brandon. Any others that went to camp? Come on up. Super. No, Eric, you can't come again. That happened every night. I'm like, any guys want to give a testimony? And these guys would raise their hand 3 or 4 times to give a testimony. Come on up, Brandon. Come on, girls.
First of all, I'd like to thank my parents for paying my way, and Preacher and Brother Jonathan for letting us go. And my favorite sermon was on the wheat and tares, and I made a decision to be a wheat and not a tare.
Stop. I think they get scared for some reason. Thank you, parents, all these adults. Hey, y'all, the Bible says be not afraid of their faces, okay? She's scared of old people. She looked right at me and said that.
Camp was fun. It was great. And I made a decision to let my authority get into my life and for me to get over my fear of trusting people.
Hope I didn't just mess that up.
Camp was fun. My favorite sermon was to not be a tare, but to be a wheat. And I've decided to be more of a wheat and not a tare in my life.
Good job.
I thank Preacher for letting us go. Thank Brother Jonathan for coming with us and the youth workers. I thank my parents for paying my way. I made a decision not to be a tare, but to be a wheat.
Amen.
I really enjoyed camp this year. I wasn't going to go, but I'm really glad that I went because it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of things. I made a decision to get rid of the bad things and to replace it with good because I had a lot of things in my life that weren't good. So I decided to do that and to not be a tare.
Super.